Hi everybody, this is Corrine Forrest, and this week I want to talk to you about single tasking and that it's the only way to stay sane in this very digital, noisy world that we live in. So, single tasking. This is a particularly apropos topic this week because February 22nd is National Single Tasking Day. The day where we're all supposed to bring to the forefront of our mind how much multitasking actually costs us. So let's talk about that. I don't know about you, but I certainly get very distracted. I was actually in my late 20s when I realized that, or found out that I had attention deficit disorder, or ADD. Now, I never had the hyperactivity part of it, and by that time I had a master's degree, so there was no educational signs that I had ADD. But I was talking to a therapist about something else actually, and she just happened to mention things like, if you hear a car door slam, what do you do? And I'm like, I turn my head and look. If you're in a glass conference room and someone walks by, what do you do? I turn my head and look. So I am easily distracted. You add on to that we live in a very digitally noisy world and distractions are plentiful. And yeah, I have to work on this single tasking thing. So what's so wrong about multitasking? I mean, we almost wear that like a badge of honor. I'm good at multitasking. Well, the multitasking myth is that you lose time when you switch from task to task. And the more complex the task is, the worse your quality of work declines and it takes you longer. So that is not a good trade-off. By multitasking, your quality goes down and your time goes up. And I don't think you have to be a business major to know that that isn't what we want for this. So if you're going to join me, I'm just going to try this one day, 24 hours of a single tasking. And that is going to be to focus on one thing at a time. Okay, so here are some tips I researched on how to help me do this. Some of them I already got down. Some of them I'm going to actually have to work on a little bit. So my first tip is to create a to-do list. Okay, so this is all the things you want to get them out of your brain and onto paper. And I call this a master task list about things that you have to do. One of the things I then do is I take that list and I actually categorize it into different categories that I've determined work for me. And as far as single tasking goes, one of my favorite categories is I have a category called 15 minutes or less. So these are tasks that need to be done, but they are not going to take much time for them. And then if I have little breaks during the day, I go look at what's on my 15 minutes or less task list and hit one of those. So we create our to-do list, we categorize it, and then we want to prioritize it. Now, I don't do a 1 to N ranking on mine. I just look at the whole list and I say, okay, here's my 3 most important things that I want to get done. If I get nothing else done during the day, at least I've accomplished those 3 things and I can go to bed feeling like, I've done something that day. So tip number 1, create a to-do list, categorize it, and then prioritize it. Number 2 is to keep a notebook handy. And I'm not talking digital. I mean, this is literally a piece of paper. For God's sake, this is why Post-its were invented, right? I'm really advocating that you don't do this digitally, although I see a lot of people do this, but I find that the phone is too tempting. If I pick it up just to, type a note or a text to myself to remember something, there is a very good chance, remember that ADD I told you about, that I'm going to check how my Words with Friends games are. Oh, I see that, little circle with 2 on Facebook. So let's see what the Facebook notifications are. And all of a sudden I've spent, 10 minutes on the phone and I actually, and this happens to me all the time, I've forgotten why I picked up the phone to begin with. I'm like, there was a reason I did this and I don't remember. So I keep actually mine is a paper planner still. I use a small paper planner and it's just to capture those stray thoughts. Okay, so while we're focusing on one thing, our brain is very capable and it will throw little messages out to the front, and we don't want to lose those. I like to think of the time when I was actually cooking dinner and I'm following a recipe and I have a couple of dishes going, so I'm really involved. And then for some bizarre reason, my brain pops up with the best retirement gift for my brother-in-law. And I'm like, oh my God, if I don't capture this now, it's going to go away, even though I was doing something else. So I just grabbed my notebook, just jotted down, gift for a brother-in-law. And then I went back to what I was doing. So having that paper just handy, that's why I said Post-it notes are a godsend in this case, just to capture those stray thoughts. Tip number 3 is the tough one, is to actually cut the distractions down. If you know what tempts you, try to eliminate those temptations. So for me, I need to turn all the alerts off on my computer, on my cell phone, and actually on my smartwatch, because I can get a vibration on my wrist when an email comes in, and I'm like, oh, look at that. So try to cut whatever distracts you. I remember at the beginning of the pandemic when my husband started working from home, he would have like CNN or some news channel on, kind of just playing in the background while he was working. But to him, that became a huge distraction. So he within a couple of weeks, he's like, I can't even have the TV on when I'm doing that. So whatever distracts you, whatever tempts you to draw your attention away from a task, try to eliminate that. All right, tip number 4, plan your day in blocks. Now, these blocks don't have to be hour long or even half hour long. They can be whatever works for you. I know someone who does it in 20-minute sections. And you can put like all those 15-minute or less tasks. I tend to do them on Monday afternoons, and I'll block off an hour to take care of those tasks. And I can take care of maybe 5 to 6 of them in that hour, and it just sort of clears my brain in there. So one of the things you want to remember if you're blocking out time is that you want to build in some white space, or Michael Hyatt likes to call it margin, in your calendar. Because if your calendar is just back-to-back meeting after meeting and you have no white space built in, you almost have no option but to multitask to get things done. And the whole point is to single task. If you're in a meeting, be in the meeting. Don't be looking at your phone, answering emails. Oh, what was that text that just came in? If it wasn't important enough for you to say you'll attend, then try to be there. All right, so the last tip, number 5, is that a couple of times a day, I mean, this is reality here, go ahead and take inventory. Go ahead, look in your inbox, check all those alerts that are coming on, because stuff does come in. And that gives you that opportunity to actually reprioritize if you need to during the day. And I remember hearing a story once about a woman who was she had no margin built into her day. And then all of a sudden, one morning she woke up and her water heater had broken. And she's thinking to herself, where am I going to find the time to call in a repairman, shop for a new one, work on, setting up the installation? And it ended up taking 5 hours of her time. And you know what? She found it because she had to. So there is time built into all of our calendars because we always make time for the emergencies. So let's just plan a little and be prepared for that so that we can reprioritize. So to recap, our 5 tips for single tasking: 1, create a to-do list, categorize and prioritize it. 2, have a notebook handy to capture all those stray thoughts. 3, cut your distractions. That means the things that are distracting to you. 4, try to plan your day in blocks, leaving some white space in there. And 5, a couple of times a day, take inventory and then reprioritize. So that's all I have for you this week. I'm going to leave you with this from the lighter side. Is it really multitasking if I'm listening, ignoring you, and muttering under my breath? I don't know. Something to think about. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.